metabolic health. It helps you understand how the food that you're eating, the things that you're doing, every single data, and that's at goals.life.
Can you give us some concrete examples that you believe will come to pass, in the next few years? What will change that we at this point can understand?
Well, right now, according tests of AIs is we all of them can pass tests that are equivalent to the PhDs in all fields in one mind, so that there is what we call molypaths, the people who can think both across domains. So in that, we have these operating so that it's not just like a PhD in one area, it's like a PhD in all areas, and that it could look across those areas and give you answers and operate that way. That has created there's an acceleration of this because it compounds. As it learns, the learning compounds, and it produces that. So that is a reality today. People just haven't yet experienced all of that. And so you're very quickly going to be in a situation where the problems are going to be given to it. You're going to ask it strategies and so on that can take into consideration all of the things that are happening from everywhere and how the cause-effect relationships work. Think about it this way. There's so much complexity in the world. Everything that we're, what happened, there are economic policies or economic things, there are financial things, there are health things, there are all of these things. And they all relate to each other. It's, it's called, I think, the butterfly syndrome. If a butterfly flaps its wings, it has these secondary consequences. This is all very complex. It's very complex for the human mind to think about those things.
Yes.
We're now having a situation where it can all be taken into consideration and be a thought partner that can actually go beyond our capacities to think about those relationships. And in thinking about those relationships and so on, it has an enormous impact. Somebody in the medical area was giving me the example of learning about all the causes, but with the data that they're going to have on each one of us about what were our experiences and what is our diagnosis of each of the parts. And you watch that over time. What air do you breathe? What environment are you in? What stress are you in and all that? That there will be the understanding of these cause-effect relationships that in turn change things. And then you go down to the microscopic level of dealing with practically at the molecular or cell level in dealing with these problems, okay? The changing of DNA and these types of things. All of those, we are in the midst of a tremendous revolutionary change.
What about the field of economics? Can't you take kind of the art and the guessing out of it at this point? So you're saying, you have said many times, you've written a lot about it, about the need of governments to get down to 3% of GDP with their debt, so or else everything collapses. How do you do that? And all these political consequences, the population doesn't want less money spent on them. Obviously, you could get, governments falling and stuff. Wouldn't AI just solve that for you? You said it produces strategy.
Does AI control human nature?
No, but these are
human nature. My bet is that human nature is going to be the biggest force, and it's all going to come down to like how we are with each other.
I'm so glad, though. So there'll be room for human beings still, even as we're changing DNA and implanting chips in our brains and stuff.
Well, if not, we're lost, and if so, we're dealing with each other.
Yeah.
I don't know how well that's going to go either.
But I wonder, there's still debates. I mean, you're effectively an economist. The debates about supply side versus demand side, what is the near and far term effect of these economic policies?
We're going to be able to understand at a micro level how things work better.
Exactly.
Okay. So, by the way, again, I put out this this study that shows the mechanics and I want to convey that mechanics so everybody could see the mechanics. But you're going to go down to a molecular level. That means, like, nowadays, we or policymakers like the Federal Reserve think about something like inflation.
Right.
And there'll be maybe 5 measures of inflation. And we're using the term inflation because our minds are limited in its capacity of the number of things we could think about.
Right.
When we're now in this new reality, which we now are, you can go down to a molecular level, essentially, and saying, I could see all the different transactions of what was bought and what was sold and why. And now I can really have a level of understanding. We don't have to be at this grand level that we don't. We're going to be at the molecular level of understanding individual transactions and what's affecting them, and be able to deploy resources at the individual molecular level, just like we can do it in biology or physical existence and so on.
So, I mean, this will lots of downsides to AI. Obviously, I dread it. I would end it if I could. But there are upsides, and this sounds like one of them. So, like, if you...
Of course.
So we have a COVID again, and we're thinking about, should we issue COVID checks? With AI, we can know the effects of it.
What the money's going for, and that'll change everything. It'll change the controls. And but it is, of course, a two-edged sword, right? It'll change who controls it, who has access to it, who can use it detrimentally to other people. All of these things are part of the question.
Is there any way to avoid, like, totalitarian social controls under AI, with AI?
I think there's a question of whether you can have social and totalitarian controls, or maybe you just have anarchy. I mean, I don't know where we're going. I can't tell you. I cannot tell you what this world. I do believe we're going to go through a time warp. Okay, what I mean, it's going to feel like you're going through over the next 5 years. And that environment is because of these 5 major forces, all of these things, and the changes in the technologies, particularly artificial intelligence and related technologies. So the world 5 years from now is going to be a radically different world. And I don't know what that's going to look like. When you go into the world of quantum computing and what quantum is like, in so many different ways, it raises questions of, what is that like? I'm not smart enough to tell you what that world is going to look like.
But as an investor for 50 years...
Who is in control? I don't know who's in control.
Okay, right. So this is like the opposite of what you've done your whole life, where you try to predict, 5 years hence. That's your whole business, right?
Well, that's, I said my business is try to predict, but I'd say, first thing, whatever success I've had in life has more been due to my knowing how to deal with what I don't know than anything I know. Okay? So how you deal with what you don't know,
I believe that.
Okay, is so important. So my business in a nutshell is I try to find a bunch of bets that I think are good bets, but to diversify well so that I have a bunch of diversified big bets, because I do not know. I mean, in terms of my actual track record, I've probably been right about 65% of the time, okay? And any one bad bet can kill you. So I've known how to deal with that. That's what I've learned, including how to deal with what I don't know.
So now you're describing an environment where you can't really know anything about the world in 5 years.
I could place good bets, okay? There are some things that are highly knowable. Okay, highly knowable, like they say, death and taxes.
Right.
Okay, demographics. Okay, so I can know or have a view, for example, that I believe owning dead assets is not going to be a good thing. So I could think about alternative storeholds of wealth. I can think about that. I can place some bets that allow me, they're not the certain bets, but I can place enough bets and have enough diversification that I can be relatively confident of some things, but never absolutely all totally confident. But I think when we're coming back anyway, that's the reality. I'm just describing our reality the best I can. That's why people who are confident in the future and are just experiencing the present, right now, people are describing, all of them are describing how things are. And almost everybody thinks the future is going to be a modified version of the
Right. A
present.
pure extrapolation forward. Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Things are good.
Right. I get it.
Okay? Well, I'll guarantee you there will be big changes.
So those are dumb people, you're saying, making those comments.
I'm saying it's understandable, but when you study change
Yeah.
and the nature of change, it's the world changes in dramatic ways because of causes that we can look at and get a good understanding of. But we can't be sure about anything because of the nature.
But in this specific case, I mean, that's always true, and wise people understand that. Like, you're not in control of the future. Of course, you're not God. But in this specific case where there are specific technologies whose development we understand because we're watching it, it almost feels like there's no human agency here. Like, not one person ever suggests, like, well, why don't we just stop the development of the technologies by force?
Well, there's I think you're being theoretical again.
Well, I don't know.
Just look how the system works, okay?
Yes.
Who makes what decisions how? Like, I think you have the bias of we should stop all these technologies and just stop it. Somebody else has another view, and the other people have other views. And and then there's a means by which those views turn into actions, okay? And so it's correct, the system that we're dealing in will make those types of decisions. And we could discuss the pros and cons of all of those things, but that's just how it works, right?
Well, I don't know. I mean, there are all kinds of pernicious, long-standing things that we've stopped, like the global slave trade. The Brits are like, we're not for this, we're stopping it. And they did.
Tucker, you are using that we stopped, okay?
No, Britain stopped it.
Okay, but I'm just trying to say, you have to look at the system and say, who has their hands on the levers of power?
Right.
And what will they do and what are their motivations? How does the system work?
I think that's right.
Okay. How does the machine work to make decisions? Okay. So if we can agree on this person makes these types of decisions about these things and it works this way, then we can say we, the collective we, can do that. But this theoretical collective we that is going to make decisions, like we could sit here and be very theoretical.
No, I get it. A determined nation probably can't stop this. So my second question is, you keep hearing there's this AI race between the United States and China.
Yeah.
Is it true that one country will be completely dominant by the end of this race and that will be meaningful? Or
I think that what's going to happen is, and again, I'm speaking now probabilistically, I think that there will be different types of developments, but by and large, it's very difficult to keep intellectual property.
Yes.
That when you take the products of the intellectual property and you put them in the public.
Exactly.
That'll last about 6 months. I mean, at most, and you'll develop the nearest. And so intellectual property protections and isolation is probably not going to work. So now we're going to have different advantages and disadvantages. Let's say, for example, in China's case, there are many fantastic chips, not quite at the same level. See, we design chips, but we can't produce chips effectively. We can't produce, by and large, we can't produce things, any manufactured goods, as effectively, cost effectively, by and large. We have a problem doing that. So what we'll do is we'll design those better chips. You won't have the intellectual protections. And you're going to then have the production of things in China at a very inexpensive way. Manufacturing. China has about 33% of the manufacturing in the world, which is more than the United States, Europe, and Japan combined. They manufacture effectively cheaply. They will embed chips in the manufacturing. The application of chips, they are more ahead on. China's more ahead on the application of chips. Robotics. So we're talking about just thinking, but when you connect.
Okay. All right. It sucks about yesterday, but the water heater only has a certain amount of hot water. and then the the water's gotta fill back up, and then the water heater's gotta reheat the water back up. So yesterday, what happened was when we were trying to fill the water, and you went to go play for like 4 or 5 minutes, which isn't long, but when you're filling up the bathtub, that is long. So what ended up happening was all the hot water that was in the water heater, you used finding out that we didn't put the drain correctly. So once we found out we did the drain incorrect, the hot water was already used. We already we already lost. So then all we could do is I was using the water, but when you're older like me, you can tell the difference when there's some hot water left or no hot water. You had none. So the bath might have been okay for like the first 30 seconds I was filling it up, but then after 30 seconds it would have got like freezing cold, like it was outside, to the point where you can't jump in that water, or you can have to go to the hospital because it's so cold. So that's why I told you you can't take a bath. Please just listen to me. And you're sitting there arguing with me about it, which I don't need to take 20 minutes to explain everything to you in detail like I'm taking a college course. I'm your father. When I tell you no, just say, okay, there's a reason for it. Now that I've explained the whole thing, now you understand why I did it. Now you probably understand I wasn't just being mean. There were reasons behind, I'm telling you. Okay? So you understand. If you go take a bath last night, I would have let you. It was just the water. You can't be in too cold of water or you will get hypothermia and you can die. Yes, you can die being in cold water for too long, yes. Yeah, so you don't need to take a cold bath just because you just want to take a bath. And all you want to do usually is play in the bath anyway. So you can't play in a cold bath. You know that. Come on, buddy. Nobody. Yeah, well, nobody cares that you do that, but you can't do it in a cold bath. You're not going to sit in there and you're going to jump in and be like, and jump out, right? Yeah, well, that's what I'm